And hello, everyone. Welcome back, and welcome for everyone new one who has joined this track. Um, our next presenter made a pretty unbelievable journey, if we consider it from a Nordics people standpoint. He traveled or moved from a sunny, warm country back in 2005 to, let's say, much more challenging climate of Finland, and he has stayed since there. And he will be talking today about Big Brother. So please welcome Victor, who is working at PAF Sports Casino, and he will be talking about somewhat controversial topic, I would say, even if you just read the title. So Victor, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning and greetings from Helsinki, where it's actually really warm and sunny today, so I don't regret about the weather. But yeah, thank you for having me here today. I hope you will enjoy this talk. So let's get started. You know, I want to start with this initial statement. This is the journey that we made, me and my team, when we created something, like a little baby, and how the steps, which kind of steps this baby has taken. So in a sense, this is testing conference. I want to say that in a DevOps environment where we actually live, testing is a question that we are specialists at, but actually, is owned by the whole team. So, everything started here with one thing. I got hired. And I got hired as a senior software engineer and QA. What does that mean? That means that I have two souls. I'm a engineer, software engineer as my background, but actually I fell in love with testing at some point in my career. And if I know one thing about, if there's a thing I know about testers, is that we are really good at making questions. So let's start with a question. Who are we? Like Rudolf said, we are an online casino. We are in different markets, and we have made a choice of being present only in those markets where there is a regulation created by the government, and with that regulation, it comes some needs, And basically, those needs are reporting needs. We need to report about activities, so that our players are protected and the state knows what we are doing. And when you have these needs, you have these reporting needs, you have to build technical solutions. And when you have to build technical solutions, you need to test them. And that's the reason why I got hired, because they needed a tester for this team that it was creating these solutions. So, my first question is, or was back then, what are we building here? When I got hired. So I got hired to this team. What's the thing that we are building? And probably you all have been in this kind of situation. You are thrown to a project and you need to figure out, okay, what are we building here? And eventually, you have had a chat with the architect and you have been thrown to this kind of, picture, like high-level picture. And what you can see here is like, what do we do in my team? So on the left, you see the casino, all the activity that the players are doing, like playing rounds in poker or in slots, wherever, making payments, registering accounts and things like that. All those teams, will send this information to us through Kafka, which is, a service to stream information. We will consume it, and then we will create reports for the authority. And who is the authority? The authority is Big Brother. So Big Brother is actually checking that everything we do is right and it's according to what we are supposed to do by the legislation. If I talk to my architect, he will tell me that, we are ingesting data, we are transforming data, we are, building models, and finally we are creating reports. So that little box or that big box is my domain, and everything comes from other teams, that they are telling to us what's happening out there. My first thought was like, okay, what I mean, how do I test this? Like it looks actually fairly complex, because It's a really big casino. We have many players. So how do we do this? And my first concern as a tester is like, okay, I see that I have different services that you saw, like some ECS or application deployed in ECS, some Lambda, some storages in the middle. So do I actually have the flow all the way? That was my first question. And to answer this question, I thought like, okay, I'm gonna build a little app that where it will give me some visibility over those storages. So I built this little application written in Java Spring Boot. I deployed in ECS, and it will give me some endpoints that I could query just to verify that some of those events that are coming from Kafka are actually reaching the end of the line. Then I wrote this little client. I use this Maven JMeter plugin just to create the scenarios, because actually my colleagues have created this amazing thing that is an application that can create or can mock what Java does. So basically, it's a mock for the whole activity in the casino. So basically, I could create these scenarios with JMeter. I could just inject them to Kafka, and then I could verify my flow. And at a given point, I could use, a very, very simple Java test where I will use HTTP client calling to the endpoints offered by this application that I wrote to query those storages. So basically, you see 3 arrows there. So, and these blue boxes. So that's the event that came to, the first box went to the second one and finally to the third one. And do you know what? It works, actually. It worked. So I was, having this kind of aha moment, like, wow. But then, we as testers, we have always this kind of second brain, and there is always this kind of feeling like, did I cover everything? Is this really, the situation where I actually got everything under control? So I was thinking, okay, does it work? Yes, but does it work the whole time? So then I thought, does it work while I'm at lunch? What I did, it was actually put this little Java client, to run in Jenkins, and I think I put it to run every 7 minutes, and I went for lunch. And the result was it actually worked. Yes, and I was super happy. But it just worked for the first 3 times. So what was wrong here? We have figured out something. Well, actually, the problem was that our configuration in the DynamoDB, one of the databases that we used, did not scale. So it will have worked, for the first minutes in production, but then after a while, we will have get this kind of error like, sorry, you have exceeded your throughput, and you cannot continue storing information. Also, I realized, that when the team made some changes and I was running this little app, I lost the flow again. And that's because, they had done some renaming of the resources, and, the IAM roles in Amazon were not right, and so on. So actually, to have this little exercise, to have a little testing app or a little testing service that you can call, with some random testing framework, it's really good, to see that you have the flow and you verify the integration, in all these components for this kind of pipeline. So I really recommend, you have this kind of distributed system, where you have a pipeline that you build something like this. And then, of course, it came another concern, and that was, okay, how to make sure that these events that come to me are processed only once? What happens if there is an error on the other side of the line and it will hit me twice? So here, this is a bit more of a architectural decision, but you see the first little box there, the first blue one, that's actually DynamoDB database. And yeah, we ingest information from Kafka. We consume it with Java application, the orange box you see on the left. But why we didn't send it to the end of the line right away, where we have our business logic? Well, we actually decided to put it in some sort of like a front-end service, where we will store all the information. And since Kafka is giving you an event ID, we could just guarantee that event will be stored once and only once in that little DynamoDB. Then there's that Lambda that will actually push that event to the business logic side of things. And why is this important? No, because eventually things go wrong. And what happens when things go wrong? When things go wrong, it's good to have sort of a silver tape application that will help you fix things. So basically, we created another Java application that, in case we realize that some event was wrong, has been processed wrong, the business logic is wrong, we could actually rerun it. So we could push it back to that DynamoDB. The DynamoDB will kick that Lambda, and it will be processed again. So if you're in such a situation that you need to guarantee that things are processed only one, put this kind of mechanism in place. So, you are running with 5 million events and all of a sudden there are 55 that you are missing or, they are broken, you can rerun them, and then you sort of decouple yourself, from the business logic part of things. So then what happens then when you are sort of like, I have checked that I have flow, I have checked that the components are talking well to each other. I can guarantee the idempotency that all the events are actually stored once and only once. What happens then? When then you go to production. And there is this situation where you are testing, and you have your unit tests and you have your service tests or integrations tests, you have your API tests, you have your end-to-end tests, you have all these tests, and you think you're in control, But actually, in reality, life in production shows you something like this. That actually your application under certain conditions will behave in different ways, right? So also let me talk a bit about Big Brother. So when you are dealing with a regulator, it can feel a bit scary. Like, okay, these are the guys like putting the rules. Eventually, if we don't comply to the rules, they are they're going to get mad. We eventually get a fine, or maybe they will forbid our activities. But actually, I just want to say that these people are humans also, and they just want to do their job well. So as engineers, as testers, as QA people, start a human relationship with these people, because then when you will have problems, it will be way easier to deal with them. So yes, let's build very robust systems on a technical point of view. Let's test them very well, but always remember that we have humans on the other side that wants to do their job very well. So yeah, talk to them. They are humans. And why I'm saying this, why I'm saying that we need to talk to them and have a relationship, because actually we will have problems, and we did have problems. All of a sudden, when we were in production, we realized like, we have some problem, and we didn't have enough information. And sometimes, Big Brother will, look at you and will tell you, hey, you are actually missing these events. Hey, you are actually, losing something, or, what you reported yesterday doesn't correspond what when it comes today, and those kind of things. So this was the kind of a panic moment. And in order to tackle this, we're thinking, okay, how can we be sure, that all this information that comes through this Kafka to us and we consume and we manipulate and we report is right? Well, actually, we live in a luxury world where we had a data warehouse. So we have other data sources that we could check. And our idea was, okay, let's check on the sources. Let's check on, on our own storage and see that everything is fine. Actually, we didn't have one data warehouse. We were, moving from an Oracle-based data warehouse into a cloud data warehouse called Snowflake. So what we created doing with this Apache Airflow was a little reconciliation test framework that will basically query, to these sources and verify that everything is fine. And in the moment that, we see that there are some events that are missing, there's some transactions, maybe some payments, maybe some, like rounds or something like that, then it will raise an alert, and we will react, using that little rerunning application that I talked to you earlier about. Then I would like also to talk a bit about, when you are in production, we need to talk about, monitoring and observability. And we as engineers, we have this tendency of actually trying to capture those moments where our applications misbehave, so it's like the errors, there's an error, how does it react and so on. But remember that, no error ever paid the bill, it's only our successes, like when everything goes well, when we can say that we are delivering quality, and those are the ones that are paying the bill, our successes. I think it's very important, to have alarms, and I think it's good to have metrics that they verify that you are fulfilling the goal. So in our case, for instance, if we need to send some information to Big Brother, we have to, have alarms that this is alive. We are sending this many, and if we see some kind of misbehavior, raise an alarm. So don't have alarms only to see if there are errors, also to see that the flow is what it's supposed to be. And that has to do a bit with the concept of observability, So, but of course, you need to have also this kind of alarms for error conditions. Also want to say, that you need to learn to know your application. And sometimes we are very technical and we forget that this is driven by a business need. So we need to talk to business people and we need to understand what's going on, So for instance, one good question I was discussing with them is, okay, when are we going to have some marketing campaigns that maybe will increase, the amount of events that we are consuming? Then you are a bit aware, and then if you see that in your monitoring that, things goes up, like some indicators are actually increasing, it's, because there is some campaign, marketing campaign or something. So it's not because your pipeline is misbehaving. So, talk to them and learn to know your domain. It's like, when you have a small child and your child goes to school and you talk to the teachers, and you try to understand, how's the life in the school, how's the life in production. So this is a bit the same thing. And why I'm saying this, because actually we had that situation where we have way too much information. And this is like a sweet problem to have. So what happened here, if you remember, I told you there was this Lambda that it would, push some events, some information to this business logic part of things. But that little database was actually really, really overheated. It was, running, the Java application was running out of threads. We gave it more threads. And then the application, the database actually, couldn't even store the information. We have to talk to, AWS support, and they told like, something is off. So this is a happy problem to solve, right? And what we need to do, we have to scale our database cluster size once. We survive for like 1 more year, and then after 1 year, again, we have to, scale it up. And being a sweet problem, it comes with a cost, but that's the cost you pay actually for being successful. Maybe for me as a tester, the problem here is that we were a bit lucky enough of performance testing for this part of the business, like kind of things. So that's something I take with me. Just to give an example, this is how things look in production. So this is the reason why we actually can't sleep at night. We can just see that everything is flying. We know that our pipelines are processing data. We know how much data is going on there. And of course, if we realize about something like this, then you need to start thinking, what's happening there? Why do we have that deviation? And that is where you, as a tester, we need to think a bit. Okay, what has happened? Is it something that is misbehaving? What can we do? And this is a task for everybody in the team. So just to wrap up, build something that will verify the flow, some light test automation that you can actually make sure that you have flow, because once you do it, you will find these kind of small problems, And me as a tester, that gave me a really good feeling because I felt I am contributing to the team. I'm putting something on the table, and that's actually what we as a testers should do, towards our colleagues, to provide with insights about how the setup is behaving, some change, how it reacts, and those kind of things. Of course, we have to think also about our big brother, about our final user. But in this situation, it's good to have these little tools, that actually, I had it there running for a while, and then we were so sure and the platform was so stable that I don't run it anymore. But if I need to run it one day, I can do it. So you have to also be smart, Um, whoops, yeah, invest in monitoring, both for errors and successes, and put alarms and grow with them. So something we did is actually at the beginning we had some alarms, we had some monitoring, and then when our application was sort of, or our pipeline was growing, our baby was growing, was becoming a teenager, we changed this because we understood that the behavior was sort of different, and this is something that is I want to call it like a monitoring driven development. So put monitoring always as a first thing when you are building software, because it is not only about assessing quality when you are going to deploy to production. It's also throughout the whole life cycle of the solution. And then you have this situation. You work for a banking company, for instance, or any other scenario where you need to make sure that your events are processed once and only once. Then have some kind of solution there, like will allow you to to guarantee idempotency and have some sort of mechanism to re-trigger those events in case that you don't reconcile. So I hope this is something that will be useful for you. I think I started with one initial statement. I want to finish with a final statement from a book that I really recommend to all of you. It's a great book. I think it's on Limpub, so you can just go and buy it for quite little money. That DevOps brings a lot of complexity that is different. It makes the world different than what it used to be. Before we maybe got like some test cases, test scenarios, we run them and so on. Now we have so many moving pieces, so many people we need to deal with, and different roles and all that we need to have this kind of, we need to be like a Swiss knife, we need to have these different skills to to tap things here and there, monitoring and some light TA and some this and some that in order to achieve your goals, Personally, I really like to work like this, because I have to interact with a lot of people, and this helped me, to grow in my knowledge domain, on the knowledge of the domain, and also to grow as an engineer, and as a tester. So I think that was from me. Any questions? I will be happy to hear from the sunny Helsinki.
Thank you very much, Victor. Uh, I encourage people to definitely ask questions. Meanwhile, I will ask a few of my own. So you mentioned that you should invest into monitoring, and do even like monitoring driven development. What
Yes.
about verifying the monitoring itself that this is correct and not overly relying on monitoring? Have you had any slips with that you think that the input from monitoring will provide you the signal at the right time, but this has not happened?
Typically, yes, it has worked, but the thing is, like, since the behavior of your application is changing, and then eventually you need, or your system, and you need to add more features, you need to also adapt the monitoring to those changes. So what I have seen is now sometimes we have this kind of monitoring in place, and then some bug fix comes, some new feature comes, things like that. but we forget to update the monitoring accordingly. And I have in this solution that I presented to you, I saw some. It was like a log-based monitoring that it would not catch anything anymore because actually that piece of the code was removed. So it was just, looking into something that will never happen. That one I have seen in my own experience. But like I said in the presentation, I think you need to go like hand in hand with the presentation that you are handing to your child, while it's growing, and adapting the monitoring and adapting the alarms, so it's given value to you throughout the whole life cycle, or the whole life
Okay,
of the system.
thank you very much. So now with that experience that you had, you have the baby's still growing, as I understand, or he's a teenager, so there's still more to go. But what if next baby will come in? So are there any like um, baseline or different approaches that you would like to try out with the new one, which you think like, well, that's been there, done that, but
Mm-hmm.
with a new one, I will be like much stricter,
So,
much
so, so,
much
so,
smarter.
so, do you want me to start revealing my presentation on Nordic Testing Days 2022 already now?
Oh, you
Is that
can,
what you
you
want?
can absolutely give a
Well,
brief glimpse about that.
yeah,
So
actually, we are evolving this whole platform, and as I exposed, the main problem was this relational database that it was getting really overheated, and actually it was getting costly because we had to increase the size of the cluster. So we are moving in the new version. We are actually testing right now, so it's going to go to production really, really fast. We are removing that, and we are using the data warehouse instead for certain reports, because the information is already in data warehouse, so we don't need to keep our own model in our domain. So we are going to keep that model for certain reports that need to be real time. We cannot wait that information will be in the data warehouse. We will keep it in DynamoDB probably, and then this kind of like heavy report that takes time to process and so on, we will just use the data warehouse for. So obviously, when we have been running this about 2 years in production. So this is the sort of like tale about my experience, like taking care of the child and growing with the child. But that's where we are heading, like going with removing this like heavy processing on the database layer, away, and just relying on a different engine. In this case, this cloud-based data warehouse, Snowflake, that is working quite well for us.
okay, thank you very much. I wonder if as you also mentioned, like some of the monitoring is based on logs, and there is massive amount of logs generated overall, and in a lot of cases, it's either for post processing of debugging something or on real time events.
Mhm.
Have have there been any experience on actually trying to analyze those logs further to predict any potential future problems that might appear in your experience?
That's that's a really, really good question, because like I mentioned, sometimes we found errors, and when we found errors, we need to reprocess stuff. So the idea we are having is, when those errors happen, instead of just raising an alarm and saying, "Hey, something happened, go fix, go figure out what it is." Actually, we were thinking as, can we automate it so it will auto heal? So
Mm.
instead of having like a pipeline of data pipeline is going like from left to right, can we have like a state machine with different states that will do like reconciliation on the fly, and assessing that the report we are sending is exactly what it should be according to the data warehouse, and in case it's not, go into the beginning of the pipeline and trying to rerun those kind of things. So actually, this information that you are getting from the logs, uh, or even from the application monitoring. Imagine that your CPU is at 100, and you know that your CPU at 100 means you are losing data. That could be like, okay, my values have been at 100 during this time. I need to reprocess all the events from that period of time. How can I automate it so 8 o'clock in the morning when I come to the office, or when we don't go to offices now, right? When you wake up from the bed and you walk the 40 centimeters to your laptop, I don't need to, react. It's already fixed. Maybe I just need to verify, like, okay, it's been a data correction happened, and I just need to verify that everything is good.
Exactly. Yeah. Really, really good point. So by the end of the day, we will automate everything. So this claim is still valid. I do have several questions from the audience as well. So the first one is, how do you test the timing of different events processed by different services? From experience, a lot of issues happen due to timing rather than functionality.
A very, very valid question. You know, uh, like I exposed at the beginning, we are consumers of different teams producing different events through different topics. In Kafka, it's this concept of topics. So think about like your bus is having different lanes, and what happens if the timestamps are wrong? That's one of the typical things that happens. So you should really check that everything is there. And at the beginning, when we were testing this, we were raising a few hands saying like, "Hey, these these timestamps, they are not really good." But actually, the real question about time is how you make sure that you get those events on time for your reporting. How do you make sure that the events are produced on time so that Big Brother is happy what he's saying or he's seeing? And there comes maybe the soft skills. So you need to bring your problem, go to the producing team, and tell, "Hey guys, girls, this is not working." Because if you produce this event like 1 hour after they happen in your domain, that's too late for Big Brother. But like having the information available is a critical question here, and for that, we need to tackle it with some automation. I have some queries actually that will go exactly and say, okay, when was the event produced in a Kafka? When was actually happening in real life? And I have others that will tell me like, okay, go to this team and tell now something is off. And I have to say that it's good communication, and these production teams have improved a lot, and we don't have those issues anymore. But really, really good question about timestamps when actually you consume information from different places and you need to bundle everything into one single report. Especially, eventually you are we are in different markets and different time zones. So if we want to apply our solution to a different one, so we have to be aware of this time zone changes. Or questions?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, there are more. Let's move to the next one. Would you recommend using event storing and testing event stores? Use case. You need to re-trigger a certain amount of events, but you could cherry pick the ones you need, while other cases could be handled by dependency checks.
Super good question. That's exactly what we do. So, actually when we have this problem that something is off, this reconciliation will tell us that, hey, this exactly event is wrong, and we can actually re-trigger only those events. So build the capabilities needed in order to identify which events are broken or unprocessed or wrong, and build a mechanism to retrofeed to the beginning of your pipeline, and just doing a smart rerun and not like a bulk rerun, because you don't know exactly which one is having a problem, so you need to rerun everything. That's really like costly from computing point of view. I hope I answered the question. Otherwise, just ask me in the chat later. Like I will be around.
Absolutely. The next one. So you will not get away easily. So you will need to answer all the questions.
Cool. That's really nice to hear.
So first of all, regards, cool presentation. Thank you. So did you use Kafka ACKs for making sure the messages were delivered?
No, we did not. We did not, because probably yeah. Yes, we do. Or sorry, I misunderstood the question. Actually, we do ACK that we have picked the event. What we don't do, because something you can do in Kafka, we don't go to Kafka and check in Kafka. You have like this, I think it's called lenses or something like this, that you can go and check the content of the topic itself. But yeah, we read, we say we store in this DynamoDB, so we got the item potency covered, and then we do the ACK. So when we good to go with live. I hope that was actually a question. Yeah, we go read, we store, and once we are sure we store, we go up, and then this Lambda will be fired, and if there are some errors processing the information of this Lambda, you have 24 hours that the event will be in this DynamoDB stream to get it processed. The problem is after you have ACK'd the event, what will it happen if it takes more than 24 hours to process the Lambda? Then you will need to retry, or reinsert in the Dynamo and restart the whole process.
Thank you very much. And if there are, of course, follow-ups, feel free to ask any follow-up questions as well. How do you test timing of different events processed by different services? Oh, sorry, this was one. Okay, we already asked. I was looking that I already have read that. Sorry about that. So then it's the last one. How do you know what to log? With event-driven systems, logs are massive, if not done properly, and will render them next to useless.
It's not that they are useless. I will always advocate for going a bit on the logging too much part of things. But of course, I have somebody in my organization here, on the site telling, guys, you are logging too much. This is really costly. So please, and it's a bit of a fight there. Like I said earlier, at the beginning, go with a lot of logs, and then you start tailoring and you start reducing, and you start to understand where it makes sense to log and what makes sense to log. So don't try to have like a waterfall idea of this much we need to log, and try to be agile and go, with the 2 years experience. Sometimes you change a log here and there, and you understand, oh, now it was an error here, and so on. So be learn with it and go with it, and adapt your logs and your alarms as well. Yes.
Perfect. So it seems I will just double check that we have covered all the questions from the audience. Yes, we do have. So thank you very much, Victor. It was a really good session. Still nice to hear that you're joining, enjoying Finnish weather, and
Yes.
yeah, virtual and real applause to you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everybody who was watching. I hope to see you in Tallinn next year.
Absolutely, we'll be definitely there. So yeah, fingers crossed. Now we will head to the lunch break, which will last for an hour. Hopefully, if you are in your offices, at your homes, it will take a bit less time. So it's a perfect time to please do rate the tracks that we have in our chat app. Leave the feedback. Please do ask the questions during the sessions, and do visit our partners, Rocket Lab, Nortel, Playtech, LHV. Please do give them a visit. They really made an effort for us to be here, so we are super appreciative of that. The next 3 sessions will be moderated by my colleague Raivo. So I wish you all a great rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.